Okay, once you've been able to graph a function, the next thing you want to be able to do is to be able to find where the zeros might occur. And again, zeros are those points in which we cross the x-axis. They're called zeros because, in fact, the y value of each point where we are on the x-axis is 0. So we are trying to figure out where this graph would cross our x-axis. Now, we're not allowed to cheat and go grab a graphing calculator yet. So in this case, we need to plot some points and figure out what our graph's going to look like. And we can go back and we can do a quick sketch again. We know that we are a even, which means that both of our end points will be going, or not end points, but our end directions will be going in the same direction. Our leading coefficient is positive, which means both of our ends will be going up at some point. We are a degree 4, which means we're going to change directions 4 times. So we're looking at something that's probably going to be some sort of a W. So with that in mind, let's erase all that off of there and find out what we really have. It's always good to have a rough idea of where we're headed to know if we've got the right thing going. So again, I started with -4 to 4 and just kind of counted through there. Looks like I skipped -3 for some reason. I'm not sure why, but we'll see as we go through. So our directions say determine consecutive values of x between which each real zero occurs. So we're looking for where exactly are we crossing that x-axis. So let's start out and plug the -4 in. So that's going to be -4 to the 4th power minus -4 to the 3rd power minus 4 times -4 squared plus 1. And so if you grab a calculator and you plug that in there, we're not going to graph with a calculator. Oops. We are just going to plug that in and find out what that answer might be. So I've got a -4 to the 4th power minus a -4 to the 3rd power minus 4 times -4 to the 2nd power plus 1. And if I did that right, when I plug that all into the calculator, I get a 257, positive. So then I'm going to go and do the same thing. I'm going to plug that -2 into that big long equation. And whatever I do, I've got, what, let me write that all out for you. So that would be a -2 to the 4th minus -2 to the 3rd minus 4 times -2 squared plus 1. I'm going to plug that all into my calculator. And when I do that, I end up with a 9, positive 9. And the next one I'm going to do is I'm going to do that with -1. So I take out these -2s. For the -2s where I put in a -1. So it's -1 to the 4th power minus -1 to the 3rd power minus 4 times -1 squared plus 1. And when I do that, I end up with a value of -1. I'm going to keep working my way through this equation. So I'm going to take out the -1 and put in a 0 there. 0, 0, 0. And if I do that right, all those x values should come off, and I should end up with a positive 1 here. And then I'm going to put a 1 in there. And where I put a 1 in there, so I take out these zeros, and I put in my 1. So 1 to the 4th power minus 1 to the 3rd power minus 4 times 1 squared plus 1. Well, 1 to the 4th power is 1, minus 1 is gone, plus 4 times 1 is 4, or minus 4 at this point. Minus 4, so that should be a -3. Let me plug that in real quick. And yep, I do get a -3 there. Making sure I didn't lose my negative along the way. So then I'm going to take out the negative one, or the positive ones, and I'm going to put in my 2. And plug that into my calculator. And when I plug that in, 2 to the 4th minus 2 to the 3rd minus 4 times 2 squared plus 1, I end up with a -7. Then I go and plug in my 3. And that's a +3. I plug in that. So that's 3 to the 4th minus 3 to the 3rd minus 4 times 3 squared plus 1. I end up with a +19. And then the last one I'm going to try is I'm going to plug in a 4 there. And hopefully that's some really big number, and I know that I've completed. So that's a 4, that's a 4, and that's a 4. So I'm going to put in a 4 to the 4th minus 4 to the 3rd minus 4 times 4 squared plus 1. And I should get a very huge number of 129. So then I want to plot these points. So at -4, I'm at something really huge. I'm like way up there. And then at -2, I'm at 9, so I'm still up there. And then at -1, I then change, and you can see right here I went from negative to positive, or positive to negative, so there should be a 0 there. At some point between a 9 and a -1, I have got to cross through my x-axis. And that's kind of what we're looking for here. So at -1, I'm at -1, but at -2, I was way up at a 9. Make that steeper than that, because it really should be steeper than that. So somewhere in there, I have a 0. Then at 0, I am at 1. So somewhere right in here, then, I'm turning around and going back to positive again. And then I'm turning around immediately and going back to negative again. So I've got my 3 zeros right there, really close to the y-axis. Let me plot those in there for you. So at 0, I'm at 1. At 1, I'm down at -3. And then I go down to a -7, which is down here somewhere. And then at 3, I'm all the way back up at 19. So I am going steeply up here. And I can just sketch this back in. And you can see I do get my lopsided W there with my zeros right along that x-axis there. Again, looking over here, every place you see a change from a negative to positive, there is going to be 0 between those 2 points. And that's kind of what we're looking for, is where approximately do those zeros occur.